Once upon a time, there was a wise and good king. He had only one son, a boy named Delius. Prince Delius was a clever young man, and the king loved him very much. One day, the king called the prince to him and said, "Listen, my son, you will be king after I have died. I want you to be a wise ruler, but you will only be wise if you are happy, and you will only be happy if you marry a good and clever woman. So, I want you to travel around my kingdom, look for the best woman you can find, and marry her. Then, I am sure you will become a good ruler of our kingdom." So, Delius left his father's house and began to travel around the kingdom. He went to every town and every village. He met the daughters of rich men and the daughters of poor men, the daughters of nomads and the daughters of hunters. Some of them were beautiful, but they were stupid. Some were wise, but they were ugly. He couldn't find the perfect girl. He spent many years traveling. He didn't look like a prince anymore. His clothes were old and torn, and his shoes were broken. One day, the tired prince lay down to rest under a tree. It was the middle of the day, and the sun was high in the sky. His food was finished, and he was very hungry. He fell asleep. When he woke up, he saw a girl. She was looking after her father's sheep. Delius looked at her. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He wanted to speak to her, but he couldn't. "What's the matter?" the girl said. "You look hungry. I have only a little bread with me here, and you can have it if you like." She took out some bread and gave it to Delius. He ate it hungrily. "Thank you," he said. The girl started to walk away. Delius wanted her to stay. "Have you seen my camel?" he said. "No," the girl said. "I haven't seen a camel, but a blind one has passed this way." "Really?" said the prince. "And this camel had no tail. How do you know?" asked the prince. "And there is a wound on its right side," the girl said. The prince was very surprised. "Look at this bush. A camel has been eating the leaves, but only from the left side, because it is blind in the right eye. There are no marks of a tail on the sand, and there are drops of blood on the ground, so the camel must be wounded on its right side. Feel free to provide more of the script if you need further assistance. It has only eaten from one side of it. Camels move their tails when they drop their dung. When a camel has a tail, the dung falls in different places. A camel has been rolling here, but it has only rolled on its left side. This means that its right side must be wounded." "My name is Hariri," she said. "And what is your father's name?" "Neka." "Where does your family live?" "I must tell my father I found the girl I want to marry." Delius hurried back to his father's house. "That's good, my son, but don't be in a hurry. Find out more about the girl, meet her family, talk to them." "Let's walk together," he said to the old man. "Very well," Neka said. It was a long way to the village. At last, Delius said, "The journey is too long, and we are both tired. Let's make it easier. Why don't you carry me? Or if you like, I will carry you." What a crazy idea, Neka thought. What a stupid young man. They walked on and on, but still didn't speak. He's a very rich man, Delius thought. Rich? The prince laughed. No, he must be poor. I'm sure he's a poor man. I'm sorry for him. Neka shook his head. What a strange young man, he thought. He's sorry for a man who has 100 cows? Oh, they belong to my neighbor, Neka said. He's only a poor man. Poor, said the prince. I don't think so. They walked on and on over the hills until they came to a valley. There was a field of wheat in the valley. I don't understand this boy at all, Neka said to himself. The sun was going down now. It was nearly evening. They were carrying the body of a dead man. They were taking him to the cemetery. Who has died? Delius asked Neka. Will his name live on? How stupid, Neka thought. The poor man is dead, of course his name dies with him. It won't be used again. He said nothing. He walked on towards his house, and Delius followed him. The prince and Neka came to Neka's hut. Neka went into his hut and brought out a mat. He put it on the ground, and Delius sat down on it. We have a very strange guest, Neka said. A crazy young man has followed me all day. He's come to the village with me, and now he's here in my compound. Delius was very happy when he saw Hariri. She smiled at him and his heart jumped. She was even more beautiful than before. But my feet are still dirty, Delius answered. You haven't washed them yet. If I put them on the mat now, the mat will get dirty too. This young man isn't crazy at all, Hariri said. Oh, yes, he is, said Neka. Do you know what he said to me on the road? Wasn't that stupid? How can I, an old man, carry a big young man like him? But father, Hariri said, when he said, why don't you carry me? He meant, why don't you tell me a story? And when he said, or if you like, I'll carry you, he meant, or if you like, I'll tell you a story. In that way, you could help each other along the road. Well, anyway, said Neka, that wasn't the only thing. Who do these belong to? He said. Oh, he must be a rich man. Now, isn't that crazy? No, father, Hariri said. He's right. The man with 100 cows is rich now, but he won't be rich for long if he doesn't have a bull. His cows will never give birth to calves. His cows will all have calves, and he'll have more and more cattle every year. You haven't heard it all? Neka said. Of course it isn't free. It belongs to the farmer. Only he can eat it. But father, said Hariri, I know the man. He's a good man. He's always kind to guests and travelers. And does he ask them to pay for their food? Asked Neka. Then the young man was right, Hariri said. The wheat is free. Travelers can eat it without paying. A crowd of people were taking a dead man to the cemetery. And do you know what this poor fool said? He was asking if the man had a son. The father's name lives on in his son. It's not buried with him. He asks all kinds of stupid questions, but my daughter likes him. Does she? Said Hariri's uncles. He looks like a good man to us. Oh, very well, said Neka. But it's all so strange. I can't understand it at all. He's the best young man I've ever seen, Delius said, still sitting outside the hut on the mat. He heard Hariri's words. Hariri is a wonderful girl, he said, the best girl in all of Afar. I am very happy for you, my son, the king said. Then bring her back to the palace. Oh, no, father, said the prince. She doesn't know that I'm the king's son. She'll think I'm a poor man. If she marries me, I'll know she really loves me. The king smiled. It was a long way from the king's house to Neca's village. The prince and his servant started their journey early in the morning. "I'm very hot and very thirsty," Delius said. "I must have a drink." "That's all right, sir," the servant said. The hole was deep, and the water was a long way down. "Climb down and fill my water bottle," Delius said to his servant. He drank the cool, clean water and filled his bottle. Then he looked up at his servant. "Pull me up," he shouted, but the servant laughed at him. "Pull you up?" he said. "Why, you fool, I'm going to be the master now." He picked up a big stone and lifted it above his head. "Someone will soon find my body. They'll tell my father, and he'll send his men to kill you. I've got a better idea. You take my clothes, and I'll take yours. You can be the master, and I'll be the servant." The servant laughed. "I won't kill you, I promise," said the prince. "And I won't tell anyone that you're my servant." "Very well," the servant said. "But don't you want to marry the most beautiful girl in Afar? How will you find her father's house only if you take my place?" "I know the way," answered Delius. "You know me. I always keep my promises." "All right," the servant said, and he pulled Delius out of the waterhole. They changed their clothes. The prince took the servant's, and the servant took the prince's. Then they walked on along the road. People were singing and dancing. Hariri couldn't wait to see the face of her dear Delius. "I've never seen him before," she said. "Don't be a fool," her father said. "Look at his clothes, his dagger, and his shoes. This man looks like a fool. Let me ask him some questions." "Oh, very well," Neca said, "but be quick." "Tell me," she said, "what is the heaviest thing a man can carry?" The servant frowned. "The heaviest thing?" he said. Hariri looked behind the servant. "Who is that man standing under the tree?" she wondered. "The sweetest food—" "Yes, I know the answer. The sweetest food is honey," the servant said. Hariri was watching the man under the tree. The servant shook his head. "What a stupid question," he said. "Flowers have the sweetest smell. Everyone knows that." His answers are stupid. Neca was very angry. "Daughter," he said, "what are you saying? Look, the wedding guests are here. The feast is ready. Take this man. He is your husband." "Please, father," Hariri said. "I can't marry a fool." "Yes," said Delius, stepping forward. "And here are my answers. Your first question was, what is the heaviest thing a man can carry? My answer is a promise. Next, you asked, what is the sweetest food? I know the answer to that question, too. I was alone once in the desert. I can answer that one, too. It is the smell of the skin on the neck of your baby son. I don't have a son yet." Hariri laughed and clapped her hands. "Did you hear that, father?" she said. "This man is my husband." "But he's only a servant," Neca said. "I'm tired of all this nonsense, Hariri. I'm your father. You must obey me. Marry the master, not the servant." The servant fell down on his knees. "Oh, please, please forgive me," he said to Delius. "I was a fool. Don't tell the king, your father." "This is the right man for you," I always knew you were a clever girl. You're going to marry a prince. Where are the singers? Is the food ready? Only Delius's servant wasn't happy. He went out of Neca's compound and ran away. They never saw him again. The king liked his daughter-in-law at once. "My son, you have chosen well," he said to Delius. He took his son in his arms. He smelled the skin on the baby's neck. It was the sweetest smell in the world for him. "What is it?" Hariri asked. "I'm always frightened when you go out at night. There are bad men in the town, and the wadi is the most dangerous place." "I promise," said Delius. And so Delius and Hariri lived happily for many years. They had 7 sons and 7 daughters. One day, when Delius and Hariri were old, a servant came to Delius. "The camels have returned," he said, "but one of them is lost." Delius forgot his promise to Hariri. "I'll go myself and look for it," he said. It was dark outside. There was only a half moon in the sky. The third man came close to Delius and looked at his face. "Let him go," he said to the others. "It is the king." "What?" the fourth man said. "Yes, quick, let him go." But the first 2 robbers laughed. "Let him go," they said. "Are you crazy? He'll send his soldiers after us." "Let him go," said the others. The first 2 robbers were the strongest. "We must kill you," they said to the king. "What is it?" "Go to my house," Delius asked them. "Tell my wife that you saw me near the wadi. Say to her, there's a black cow in my herd of cattle. Its horns are too long. It will put out the eyes of the other cows. Take it out of the herd." "Is that all?" asked the third robber. "I have 4 camels." "Tell my wife to keep 2 of them, but tell her to let 2 of them go." "Have you finished now?" the first robber said. "Yes," said Delius. "Then you must die," the first robber said. And so the robbers killed Delius. They took his body and threw it under a tree. "She'll know that we killed him. Her sons will kill us." "But she doesn't know that he's dead," the third robber said. Hariri was talking with her 7 sons. They were all carrying spears. The first robber walked boldly up to the queen. "At the wadi," the robber answered. The queen put her hand over her mouth, her eyes opened wide, and she looked at the robbers. "We left him under a tree. He'll be home soon." "And what was his message?" Hariri asked. The first robber told her the words of the king. The robbers were already running out of the compound. "Quick! Quick! Don't let them escape!" shouted Hariri. "What's the matter, mother?" her eldest son asked. "Didn't you understand your father's message?" said Hariri. "This means that your father doesn't want the crows to eat his eyes. He wants us to bury his body. Take away the black mat on the roof. Put a white one there. He is dead, and he wants me to put on white clothes for him. There was one more message. Keep 2 of my camels, your father said, but let 2 of them go." "You know everything," the first robber said. "You're right. It was my friend and I who killed the king." Then the third and fourth robbers took Hariri and her sons to the wadi. They found the body of Delius and brought him home.